Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
And JCW, where I started off history. It's the history of the thumbtack death matches, of which I started with Madman Pondo, the intergender feud we had all over the world, actually, and carried it on to the Insane Clown Posse. And after that, I worked for USWA and a lot of independent circuit wrestling. I started doing shoot fighting in 1998, and I was in L1 for LPW in 1998. So I wrestled Yumika Hoda. I lost, but I was there. And then I did some shoot fights in Mexico, in Texas, and also Canada. I did the first women's shoot fight in Canada for IFC. Then I moved on to do some movies where I was featured as a wrestler in the movies. You can look them up, Marquis de Slime, which was directed by Phoebe Legere, who starred in the Toxic Avenger movies back in the early 90s. And she's a great big wrestling fan, and just popped me right in there as a character. So following that, let's see, movies, and then I worked I ran my own promotion in 2003, which we ran a tribute show for Rocco Rock when he passed away. And after that, I worked for 3PW against Jasmine St. Clair, and it was actually my last match in wrestling against the Rock and Rebel. So my first actual work in wrestling was with the Rock and Rebel, and then my last match was against the Rock and Rebel. And following that, in about 2017, I had some issues where things kind of got around the internet, where I protested some Mick Foley at a book signing, and that was about the last thing I had done wrestling wise.
Well, can I ask, why did you protest Foley's book signing?
Do you want me to get into that, or?
Sure, but before you get into that, because I think that's a quick, interesting story, and it gives the fans something to hear, look forward to.
It's at 7.
Okay.
Starting March 6th.
Sweet.
So before I let you guys go, because we're almost out of time, we are very excited. We're honored to have you on the network. One thing, Angel, one quick question,
Yes.
and then Tommy, a secondary question to you. Angel, you mentioned what a young age you started at wrestling. And
Yes.
Again, we're not wrestlers. We're fans. We've always been fans. It's an honor to speak to people like yourselves who have entertained so many. But at such a young age and being around that kind of atmosphere, that had to be very, very difficult. And then Tommy, on the other hand, how did you handle, like, if you saw anything wrongdoings going? I'm not saying there were wrongdoings. I'm just saying I see a young woman and possibly a situation with a bunch of older guys who could take advantage of that.
Well,
And that's
honestly, I was yes, and I was kept in the dark completely, which amazes me and angers me that I wasn't privy. But you have to understand, her and I were different in that we didn't lead the life that a lot of these guys led. I had a wife. I wasn't involved in any of that. So I kind of distanced myself, and knowing that if I caught wind of that, and she'll attest to the fact there wasn't not one guy in that locker room that could have handled me in my prime, I would have went off. There would have been a lot of trouble. And to hear this afterward and know I was right there, but I didn't know. And unfortunately, Angel didn't confide in me. So
you weren't there for the underage stuff, which is, I think, is what they're addressing. Right. We were more appearing in ECW, which I was already 18 years old when I entered ECW, And the things that I had an issue with was actually previous to that, between the ages of 12 and 15 years old. So those were that was kind of an issue for me, and I was taken advantage of a lot in the business between those ages, because I traveled with a group that a promoter put me with to travel for the NWA and WCW. Later on, frequenting WWF also. I traveled with, truthfully, a group of groupies, and that was pretty much my childhood in wrestling, was to service 20 plus wrestlers in my teenage years. So as far as you wanted to know why I protested Mick Foley, is because I think he's a hypocrite for trying to be some kind of representation for a rape and incest organization or network, and say that he's holier than thou when he had sex with a 14 or 15-year-old girl. So that's the issue that I have with Mick Foley. I don't plan on making that a focus of Wrestling Rewind or Wrestling Archives at all. People don't seem to, take well to the story. And I've been harassed by not only trolls and just marks, but lawyers on behalf of Paul Heyman and Mick Foley, telling me that I could no longer speak about my issues with them. So, and I've done podcasts about this before, and every one of them has been removed, so that, my story about how I actually got into the business has just disappeared after I've taken so many times telling it. So, not letting it bitter me right now, but it would kind of be nice if at one point people would just listen and not have such a lashback on me to hate me so much for something that I'm just telling the truth about.
Well, again, the focus isn't on that for sure, but you will not be silenced on this channel. I can guarantee that.